Alex,
Go,
congratulations!
Ayan, oo.
Galing, grabe.
The ELA revolution that broke the internet. Alex Eala replaces Oprah Winfrey, and the numbers coming out right now are absolutely insane.
Filipino tennis star Alex Eala rises to a new career-high number 31 in the latest WTA rankings released Monday, February 23. This after her quarterfinals run.
Welcome back to Champions Tennisitics, the only channel on the entire internet that refuses to sugarcoat the truth, refuses to bow to the media elites, and absolutely refuses to sleep on the most electrifying young talent that the world of professional tennis has ever produced. If you are new here, buckle up, because today we are not just talking about tennis. Today we are talking about a cultural earthquake, a corporate revolution, and the single most dramatic changing of the world. We are talking about the moment a 20-year-old Filipino tennis queen named Alex Eala walked into a room, posed for one photograph, and financially demolished the legacy of one of the most powerful women in American entertainment. We are talking about the moment the old media empire cracked right down the middle, and a new era announced itself not with words, not with tweets, not with a press conference, but with one single image alongside the legendary Serena Williams that sent the entire internet into an absolute meltdown. The servers crashed, the stocks moved, the critics went silent, and the world is still trying to process what just happened. So sit down, hit that notification bell right now, because if you miss what comes next, you will be the last person at the table to know that everything just changed. Let us set the scene properly, because context is everything and this story deserves every single layer of it. For years, the luxury brand world has operated in a very specific, very comfortable, very predictable way. You hire a legend, you put them in a beautiful setting, you throw a mountain of money at a campaign, release it to the world, and watch the returns trickle in on a carefully managed quarterly schedule. It was formulaic, it was safe, and for a very long time, it worked just fine. Oprah Winfrey was the gold standard of that era, a name synonymous with aspiration, with influence, with the kind of cultural currency that brands paid a king's ransom to borrow. Her endorsement was considered unshakable, untouchable, the absolute pinnacle of what a brand could attach itself to in order to signal that it had arrived at the very top table of prestige. And then everything changed. And nobody saw it coming from the direction it came from. Nobody looked at a tennis court in the Philippines, watched a teenager smashing ground strokes in the blazing heat, and thought to themselves that this girl right here is about to rewrite every single rule in the luxury marketing playbook. Nobody except the one executive inside that boardroom who made the call that is now being described by industry insiders as either the boldest strategic gamble in modern brand history or the most obvious decision that everyone else was simply too afraid to make. When that executive picked up the phone and greenlit the Alex Eala campaign, replacing the carefully curated, legacy-approved image of Oprah Winfrey with a young, hungry, unapologetically authentic 20-year-old athlete who represents an entirely different generation and an entirely different hunger, the industry collectively held its breath. The whispers in the hallways of luxury corporate headquarters around the world were immediate. Was this too risky? Was this too young? Was this too different? Was this a mistake that would cost the brand everything it had spent decades carefully constructing? The answer came not in weeks or months.
I've only dreamed of making tennis grow in the Philippines, and now I'm bringing a whole new audience to tennis all around the world.
She's humble and she works hard. Every single marketing analyst, every single brand consultant, and every single legacy media executive staring at their spreadsheets with their mouths hanging open because the numbers that came in during that first hour were not just good. They were unprecedented. They were the kind of numbers that rewrite industry benchmarks. They were the kind of numbers that end careers of people who bet against them and launch the careers of people who saw them coming. So what exactly happened in that first 60 minutes? Let us break it down because this is where the story gets truly mind-bending. The moment the campaign image went live, the image that people are now referring to simply as the $2 billion photo, showing Alex Eala and Serena Williams together in a visual that radiates power, youth, ambition, and undeniable excellence. The brand's online platform experienced something their technical team had genuinely never seen before at that scale. Traffic surged to a level that their servers, which were built to handle the kind of volume a globally recognized luxury brand experiences on its biggest sale days, simply could not contain. The website crashed. Not slowed down, not lagged, not buffered. Crashed. Completely. The kind of crash that sends every engineer in the building sprinting to their keyboards while their phones simultaneously explode with alerts. While the tech team was scrambling to bring the servers back online, the social media landscape was doing something equally dramatic. The hashtag tied to the campaign climbed to the #1 trending spot globally in under 20 minutes. Comments were flooding in at a rate that the brand's social media monitoring team described as unlike anything they had ever tracked for a luxury product launch. And here is the detail that is sending shockwaves through the entire marketing world. The detail that has old-school brand consultants losing sleep right now. 85%. That is the percentage of new buyers who flooded back onto the site the moment the servers came back online who were under the age of 30. 85%. The most coveted, most notoriously difficult to reach, most fiercely independent consumer demographic in the history of modern retail, just collectively decided in a single hour that Alex Eala was worth opening their wallets for. The specific collection that Alex wore in the campaign, the ultra-exclusive, limited edition pieces that were released in conjunction with the image, did not just sell well. They ceased to exist. Tokyo, gone. Paris, gone. New York, gone. Milan, Dubai, Singapore, London. Every single unit in every single flagship market completely wiped from inventory before most people on the other side of the planet had even finished their morning coffee. Industry veterans who have been in the luxury retail space for decades are genuinely struggling to find a historical comparison for what occurred in that window of time. One senior retail analyst who has spent 30 years tracking consumer trends in the luxury sector put it this way when speaking to an industry publication shortly after the numbers came in. He said that in 3 decades of watching brand campaigns launch, he had never once seen a demographic shift of that magnitude happen that fast. He said the closest comparison he could find in the historical data was the initial release of a certain tech company's first smartphone, which is not a luxury fashion campaign comparison you make lightly. What he was pointing to was not just a product selling out. He was pointing to a cultural moment crystallizing in real time around a single individual, and that individual is 20 years old, has a tennis racket, and was born in the Philippines. Now let us talk about Oprah, because this story cannot be told completely without addressing the other side of this seismic shift. And let us be clear about something before we go any further, because this channel believes in giving credit where it is absolutely due. Oprah Winfrey built something extraordinary. The woman came from nothing. She overcame obstacles that most people cannot even imagine, climbed to the absolute pinnacle of media influence, and became a cultural force of nature for decades. That is real. That is undeniable. That is a legacy that deserves respect on its own terms. But here is where the story takes a sharp turn, because the specific sequence of events that led to this brand replacement did not happen in a vacuum, and Oprah's camp did not respond to the rising tide of Alex Eala's global influence with grace or generosity. What happened instead, according to sources close to the situation who have been speaking privately to industry journalists, is that when the initial conversations began inside the brand about pivoting to a younger, more digitally native face for their campaigns, Oprah's representatives pushed back. Hard. And somewhere in the chaos of that pushback, the word came out. The word that Oprah had allegedly used behind closed doors to describe Alex Eala's growing presence within the brand's orbit. The word was distraction. A distraction. Let that land for a second. A 20-year-old young woman from the Philippines, the first Filipino player to win a Grand Slam junior title. A player who has broken record after record and carried the dreams of an entire nation on her shoulders every single time she walks onto a tennis court, was called a distraction by the woman who built an entire television empire telling other people to live their best lives. The internet found out. And the internet, as it always does, responded. The backlash that followed was immediate, and it was ferocious. Social media platforms lit up with the kind of righteous, targeted fury that only appears when people feel like something genuinely unjust has been said about someone they genuinely love. Fans from the Philippines, from the United States, from across Southeast Asia, from Europe, from every corner of the globe, where people have been watching this young woman work her way up the ranks with nothing but talent and determination, They all arrived at the same moment, and they all had the same message. They were done. They were done with the gatekeeping. They were done with legacy media figures deciding who gets to be taken seriously and who gets dismissed. They were done with the idea that authenticity and hunger and youth are somehow less valuable than a carefully managed legacy brand built over decades of television airtime. And the luxury brand in question, whether through genuine belief in what Alex Eala represents or through an extremely sharp reading of which way the cultural wind was blowing, made its decision. The contract was restructured, the campaign pivoted, and Alex Eala stepped into the frame. What makes this story genuinely fascinating beyond the drama and beyond the numbers is what it actually represents in a much larger conversation about influence, authenticity, and the generational transfer of cultural power that is happening right now in real time across virtually every industry on the planet. The generation that grew up watching Oprah build her empire from a talk show stage is not the generation driving purchasing decisions in 2025. The generation that is driving purchasing decisions right now grew up on YouTube and social media. They grew up watching athletes and creators build genuine connections with audiences without the filter of a television network or a production company deciding what they were allowed to say and how they were allowed to say it. They have extremely finely tuned radar for what is real and what is manufactured. They can smell inauthenticity from a mile away, and they will punish it with their attention and their wallets in ways that traditional media could never have anticipated. Alex Eala does not feel manufactured. Alex Eala feels real. She feels like the girl who got up at 5 in the morning when everyone else was sleeping and went out and hit 2,000 ground strokes because she wanted it more than anyone else in the room. She feels like the girl who carried an entire nation's expectations without flinching, who stood on the world's biggest courts against the world's best players and competed with everything she had. That feeling, that authenticity, is worth more in the current consumer landscape than any amount of carefully crafted legacy media positioning. And let us take a moment to really appreciate the sheer historical weight of that photograph. Serena Williams. There is no athlete in the history of women's sports who carries more symbolic weight than Serena Williams. 23 Grand Slam singles titles, an Olympic gold medal, a career that redefined what was possible for female athletes, and specifically for Black female athletes at every single level from the grassroots to the global stage. When Serena Williams appears in a photograph with a young athlete, it is not just a photograph. It is an endorsement of a particular kind that no amount of money can simply purchase. It is a signal sent from the greatest of one era to the emerging greatness of the next. It is a visual passing of the torch. And the fact that Alex Eala is the young athlete standing in that frame with Serena, looking like she belongs there, looking like she was born to be exactly there, sent a message that reverberated through the entire tennis world, through the entire sports marketing world, and through the entire cultural conversation in a way that people are still processing. Industry observers noted that the image has an almost mythological quality to it, the kind of image that ends up in retrospective documentaries and magazine covers reflecting back on a specific turning point in sports history. And those observers might not be wrong. The ripple effects of this moment are spreading in every direction simultaneously, and they are moving fast. On the tennis court, Alex Eala's profile has never been higher. The attention generated by the campaign controversy has introduced her to audiences who might not have been following women's tennis closely. And those new viewers are discovering very quickly that the talent is absolutely real. She is not a marketing creation. She is not a PR story in a tennis outfit. She is a legitimate, elite-level tennis player whose rankings have been climbing steadily and whose game carries the kind of depth and technical sophistication that suggests the best of her career is still very much ahead of her. New fans who clicked on her story because of the drama are staying because of the tennis. And that is the ultimate conversion that every athlete dreams of. Meanwhile, across the Asia-Pacific region, the impact of her brand moment is generating the kind of national pride energy that goes far beyond sport. In the Philippines specifically, the response has been overwhelming. Alex Eala has always been a source of national pride, but the scale of the conversation happening right now has elevated her to a category of cultural icon that transcends athletics entirely. She is being discussed in the same breath as national heroes and trailblazers, as someone who went out into the world and made an entire planet take notice of where she came from. Inside the luxury brand's headquarters, the the post-campaign analysis is reportedly producing data that nobody quite knows what to do with because the models they use to predict campaign performance were simply not built to anticipate this. Their market research teams are reportedly working around the clock, trying to quantify not just the immediate revenue impact of the sellout collections, but the longer-term brand equity implications of successfully repositioning themselves as the brand that recognized Alex Eala when it mattered and made the bold call to put her at the center of their story. Early modeling suggests the long-term brand equity gains could dwarf even the spectacular immediate sales numbers, because what the brand has purchased by making this move is not just a campaign. It has purchased a position in the cultural narrative of a generation. It has signaled to an enormous and enormously powerful consumer demographic that it sees the world the way they see it, that it values what they value, and that it is willing to make uncomfortable decisions to prove it. In the luxury sector, where brand equity is everything and where the emotional connection between consumer and brand can persist for decades, that kind of positioning is genuinely priceless. The conversation inside media and entertainment circles is equally explosive, though the tone inside those circles is considerably less celebratory. Legacy media is watching this story with the specific kind of anxiety that comes from recognizing a pattern that you know is not going to reverse itself. The brand's decision to pivot from a legacy television personality to a young, digitally native, globally authentic athlete is not an isolated incident. It is part of a much larger trend that has been building for years and is now visibly accelerating. Advertising dollars have been migrating away from traditional television for a decade. The pandemic accelerated that migration dramatically, and the explosion of creator culture, of athletes with direct audience relationships built through social media, of genuine authenticity as the highest currency in consumer marketing, has created a landscape that fundamentally disadvantages the traditional celebrity endorsement model that built the careers of figures like Oprah in the media landscape of the 90s and early 2000s. What Alex Eala represents to that industry is a preview of the future. She has a direct relationship with her audience that was not mediated by a network or a production company. She built that relationship through genuine achievement and genuine personality expressed in genuine moments. And when a brand attaches itself to that kind of relationship, it gets access to something that the old model of celebrity endorsement simply cannot manufacture. There are voices within the media establishment attempting to dismiss this story as a one-off, as an anomaly, as a lucky confluence of circumstances that cannot be extrapolated into broader lessons about the direction of the industry. Those voices are getting progressively quieter as the data continues to come in. The numbers are not cooperating with the dismissal narrative. The demographics are not cooperating with the dismissal narrative. The cultural conversation is not cooperating with the dismissal narrative. Every day that passes with Alex Eala's campaign driving conversation, driving sales, driving new brand engagement across the exact demographics that every luxury brand on earth is desperately trying to reach, is another day that the alternative explanation becomes harder to sustain. The old guard is not just losing a battle here. They are watching the rules of the entire game change beneath their feet in real time. And what is Alex Eala doing through all of this? What is her response to the chaos, to the controversy, to the global conversation swirling around her name? She is doing the thing she has always done. She is working. She is on the practice court before the cameras arrive and after they leave. She is in the gym. She is watching tape. She is studying her opponents, refining her serve, deepening the technical arsenal that has already brought her to where she is and that she intends to carry even further. There have been no defensive press releases from her team, no tearful social media posts seeking sympathy, no pointed responses to the criticism that came from Oprah's corner. There has only been the work. And in a media landscape drowning in noise, in hot takes, in manufactured outrage and carefully staged responses, that silence is almost deafeningly powerful. Every day that she responds to controversy with excellence rather than with words, she makes herself more powerful, not less. Every ace she serves in a match that people are now watching because they discovered her through this story is a sentence in her rebuttal that no press conference could ever match. The story of Alex Eala replacing Oprah Winfrey in this landmark luxury campaign will be written about in business school case studies. It will be analyzed in marketing conferences. It will be referenced in conversations about generational brand strategy for years to come. But more than any of that, it will be remembered as the moment the world was forced to truly see a young woman who had been doing the work all along, who had been building her game and her legacy one point at a time, one match at a time, one grueling practice session at a time, while the world looked elsewhere. The camera turned, the spotlight landed, and what it illuminated was someone who was entirely, completely, and absolutely ready for it. The Eala effect is real. The numbers confirm it. The cultural moment confirms it. The history being written in real time confirms it. And if you have been here with Champions Tennisitics watching this story unfold, then you have a front row seat to what genuinely looks like the beginning of an era. Before we wrap up today, let us make one thing absolutely crystal clear for anyone who stumbled onto this channel for the first time through this story. Alex Eala is not a viral moment. She is not an internet sensation who appeared out of nowhere because of a brand campaign. She is a serious, elite, historically significant tennis talent whose real-life achievements on the court are as staggering as anything you have heard in this video today. She was the first Filipino player to win a Grand Slam junior title. She has been climbing the professional rankings with the kind of steady, relentless upward trajectory that coaches and analysts point to when they talk about players with the ceiling to reach the very top of the sport. Everything that the brand saw in her, everything that Serena Williams recognized when she stood beside her for that photograph, everything that 85% of buyers under 30 responded to when they opened their wallets in that first electric hour, all of it is rooted in real achievement, real talent, and real work.
Go, Alex! Ate Oprah! Alex, congratulations!
Ayan, oo.
Galing, grabe.
Oo. Do you do that? Do you
Crowds we've seen stay this late to see a player play. So what does it mean to have this following, especially at this time of night, especially with it being cold and being the last?